Bienvenidos, genre fans across the planet. Jaime En Fuego here, and this is the third of my full-fledged reviews that are coming out of Fantasia Festival that I had the awesome honor to take part in as a virtual member of the press because, you know, that is one of the most respected in all of North America, if not the world, for genre film festivals. It's been going on annual for around 30 years at this point, I believe. And so, yeah, here in the Deadly Desert, there wasn't any way, at least this year, that I was going to have the opportunity to get up to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. But, yeah, man, what a great chance, and saw nearly 20 films over the course of the couple weeks that the festival was going on. I wish it could have been more, but, you know, unfortunately with not attending in person, you know, when I do something like the Phoenix Film Festival and International Horror Sci-Fi Film Festival, things like that, yeah, it's a lot easier when I'm in person and I can plan the time off. This was actually kind of a last minute sort of thing. Getting the chance for the press opportunity. But anyway, to cut to the chase, guys, I have been doing spooktacular, scarific reviews, the stuff that's more full-fledged horror on the Horror Show channel. And then here on my personal channel, Enfuegotainment, is where the stuff that is still hard-hitting, but, you know, not quite of that, you know, full-on, horror sort of variety. And this is a French film that, you know, was, I don't believe it was the world premiere, perhaps it was the international premiere. I can't recall the specifics offhand, but this is a film entitled Flush. And this shit was something. Keyword on the expletive that I just said, because this film is it is a dark comedy, a dark crime comedy, I guess you could say, in every possible capacity, because you have our main character, Luc, played by Jonathan Lambert, and this is coming at us from director Grégory Morin. I'm probably bastardizing the pronunciation of your name. You know, pardon mi français is, I took a little bit of it in high school, but then, you know, being here in the Deadly Desert of Arizona, mi español, es mucho mejor. Anyway, so yeah, Flush, a one location situation where you've got a cokehead played by Luke. The thing about his character, that not just the way he's written by David Nais, I'm probably messing that up too, but, you know, the way his character is written, and also the way Jonathan portrays Luke, is the fact that he's a screw up that is trying his damnedest throughout this relatively short film. I mean, it's barely over an hour, so it's the, you know, and it's also a one location sort of thing, which, you know, you have to be very creative when it comes to a one location sort of bit, and this has it in spades with, you know, just how the situation escalates after I tell you, you know, the setup of all of this. But, you know, Luke's character, as portrayed by Lambert, is, you know, he's trying his damnedest to do the right thing and failing miserably, because, you know, it's apparently his daughter's birthday, the day that this takes place, and so he's trying to reconnect with the estranged mother, because they were both, you know, presumably doing drugs, you know, and they had her, and then she was taken away from them. She was put into foster care, but now, very blessedly for that child, his daughter has been, she's in the custody now of his parents, and so he's trying to get the mom, and the mom won't even speak to him. You know, they had that horrible of a falling out, and she's like, "Are you still using all this different stuff?" And he's like, "No, I'm clean, whatever." Yeah, and then he's tooting up at the very beginning, even at the beginning of the movie, you know, he blasts, you know, up his nose, and then he leaves the tutor in his nose, and there's just this straw thing's hanging. I'm laughing my ass off, because that set kind of the, I guess, Tarantino-y sort of vibe to the proceedings here, you know, and just that dark crime, you know, comedy sort of bit. But so anyway, he does this in a bathroom, as is commonplace, you know, for anybody. Even if you haven't done Blow, you most definitely are aware that is, you know, it's where peeps go, whether it's concerts or bars or whatever. They hide out in a bathroom stall, and that's where, now, it doesn't look anything like a bathroom stall that I've seen here in the States, you know, but nonetheless, it is this, interesting, toilet area that he's in, because yes, it is a stall, but it's a lot larger than your typical bathroom stall, and I guess that definitely helped with, you know, the fact that it must have been so challenging to film, you know, a one location thing in such a confined, you know, sort of space. You know, so obviously props to, you know, Maureen and, you know, his cinematographer, and just being able to just, I mean, it's such a crammed environment, because it is like there's only, I think, 4 characters in this entire movie. So you have Luke, and then you have the estranged mother who shows up, and then the crux of the conflict, which is 2 drug guys, one of which I believe is the owner of this bar that he is at, and then the other is a dealer that, you know, has dealt with Luke before, and then also, you know, is like the main guy that, you know, supplies the bartender and everything like that. And obviously, you know, his the mother of his child, I should specify, of Luke's child, knows this drug dealer guy as well. So it's the 4 of them, and that's it. So it is very streamlined, very sparse in that regard, which is where everybody from the acting department has to bring it. I would say, I mean, if there is a weakest link, I would say, you know, his ex, but, you know, even that, I mean, she doesn't really get a ton of screen time, and her character is a more gray area, like motivations and stuff. Although when they are having the conversation specifically about the daughter that they had together and what her life became because of their drug use and stuff like that, when it gets into the, like, this has a lot of comedy and a lot of gross out comedy, you know, with the outlandishness of how all of this just escalates. But and notice I still haven't said what happens, and, you know, the inciting incident, as we say in screenwriting, you know. But it does give a little bit of time for some like lifting dramatically between Luke and, you know, the mother of his daughter. And so that's where it veers into the dramatics, because the rest of it is just, you know, as I said, like, it gets more outlandish as it all goes, because first and foremost, Luke, when he's in this bathroom, and it is like not your typical toilet, it's almost like a block, like kind of like I mean, like this, sorry, staying in frame, like this freaking long, maybe even longer. And so it's like a large circular toilet, like built into almost like a bench kind of thing. I've never seen a bathroom like this. Perhaps that's more commonplace in France, you know. But yeah, so he gets his foot stuck at the beginning of the movie accidentally after he toots up and everything. And then it's on the posters, so I eventually have to get to it. So he's having this bitch of a time getting his foot out initially, and that is only foreshadowing what ends up happening after he discovers the stash of the coke dealer, and he hides it, and he hides it within himself, so to speak. And then the bar owner and the drug dealer, they find out. Bar owner proceeds to beat the living shit out of him, like beats him near to death. And that is another thing I gotta say, is that the practical effects in this, like the, you know, makeup work and some, I mean, there's not like a ton of gore, but there's a lot of blood and like just battered, you know, facial sort of stuff and whatnot. Very convincing, very brutal looking. And so that is kind of the counterbalance between the absurdity of the situation that ensues, because after the bartender beats the living shit out of him, he like stuffs his freaking head into the toilet, and similar to his boot earlier, yeah, Luke's head is stuck in the shitter, dude. And yeah, it's, I mean, is it completely believable? I guess with this sort of toilet, sure. I mean, it was able to get in there, I guess, you know. But, and so the rest of the film is essentially all of his different attempts at getting out, whether it's like, you know, I mean, trying to make phone calls, whether it's, you know, trying to get someone to help him. I mean, you know, people in like neighboring stalls and like odd little bits of conversation, things of that nature. I mean, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. We're talking stuff in the, because his head is in the toilet and you see everything in there, man. I mean, we're talking woman's sanitary stuff. We're talking, you know, I mean, excrement, you know, everything. I mean, this film is most definitely not for the faint of heart, because, you know, I got a pretty good stomach when it comes to this sort of stuff, having watched all kinds, but in many ways, you know, over on the Horror Show channel where we do all the spooktacular stuff, you know, yeah, like I've seen so much like dismembered, crazy gore, creatures ripping people apart, all that different stuff. This was a different type of gross out, man. And I would imagine there are a lot of people who would just read the premise of this or see the poster because his head is in the toilet on the poster. They'd just be like, nope. Just like, Jordan Peele's flick, they'd be like, oh, hell no. I am not going to watch something like that. And but just incident after incident of him trying to get out and the situation just getting worse and worse. There is a pet rat that is involved in this that somebody has. I'm not going to get into any specifics, but, that's one of his tormentors. I mean, attempting not to drown. I can't remember if I, neglected to mention that or not, because obviously toilets fill up and things can plug them up and all this different stuff. So he's like trying to avert drowning at one particular point. He does obtain some help, and the assistance of trying to get him out is one of the gnarlier scenes in the movie. This is not a spoiler, sort of thing, so I'm not going to go into, third act outcomes or any of that nature. But yeah, man, this film, I mean, it has a hell of a premise, and boy, does it ever go for it. And yet it's beautifully shot within this very, as I said, very confined quarters, but just like the grade of the film, the coloring of everything. I mean, just the film quality. It looks very slick and very pristine. So you get to see all of that dirty griminess, in just a very believable fashion. Now, I know some people may be like, oh, well, if they use like a lower film grade or something, maybe it would have given it more of like a, like that gritty, grimy grindhouse sort of vibe. But I think the fact that you're seeing it in this pristine fashion in a lot of ways just makes it seem so much more real and like viable and possible, I guess, despite, just the totally off the wall premise of all of this. And, and yet, yeah, as I said, like Luke's performance, and what a physical performance by Jonathan Lambert it is, man. This guy has so much to do, especially in the third act when like conflicts start to escalate even further between him and like the bar owner and the drug dealer, because stuff gets wild in the third act as his escape attempts, just get more and more desperate. Man, does it go for it. And excuse me, it just comes to, I will admit, a very thrilling conclusion. I'm not going to say, what ends up happening with him in this particular predicament, but it sure is something, man. It genuinely is. So, and the score is really dope. I've seen a lot of international stuff that is, genre, and this obviously isn't horror or anything like that, even if it is a scary setup of sorts, but this is definitely genre filmmaking for sure, even if it is more on like the Tarantino crime dark comedy, like just almost like cartoonish violence of sorts, that's going down here, but yeah, man, the score was like a very synthy kind of, like what has a lot of popularity, within any sort of genre. I mean, even if it's like on the dramatic, 80s throwback side of things or like whatever, I just am a sucker for, that sort of soundscape accompanying stuff. But, it is rather sparse a lot of the time too, because it is about the struggle of this guy, and you want to hear the grunts and the groans and the crying, and I mean, just the weeping at the hopelessness of this situation. And, trying to contact law enforcement, trying to, getting a call from his parents, and they're like, you're still coming, right? And all this. I mean, yeah, the situation could not, it's like a Murphy's Law, like everything bad that could have happened, and yet that's the thing. He opened up Pandora's box. He bumped, and, and then he bumped again or whatever, and then bumped again. And then, sorry, third eye blind coming into my head there for a second. But yeah, he bumped, and he suffered like the biggest, craziest consequence for making a bad decision on such a big day. So, props to the writing from David Nice, and also, from just, a great performance from Jonathan Lambert, and, from director Gregory Morin. So anyway, that has been my thoughts coming out of Fantasia Festival for the film Flush. Now, yeah, it's still on the festival circuit. That's the tough thing about this sort of virtual press, man. You know, for films that you don't know when they're going to be available for a wider audience, and yet, you know, you still want to give them their proverbial flowers. This was one of my favorites of the festival, and I am planning a little countdown since the festival has now been concluded for a week, and I got through the all of the near 20 screeners that I had access to, and I once again wish I could have watched a lot more, but you know, it's just tough to make the time when you're not at the festival and have all of that allotment to focus specifically on that. But yeah, this was easily in there, and I give it grading of so. With a name like Jaime En Fuego, you know, I start at the bottom with feo, so ugly, that's a 1. At 2, you have malo, bad. 3, bueno, good, obviously. And then 4, fuego, fire. And then, you know, a few things in my entire life with the tens of thousands of films and, you know, in the decade plus that I've been doing this, you know, now in video, but even previously in print, of all the films that I've seen, yeah, there are very few that get to that 5 spot. But man, this is most definitely a 4 out of 5 from Fantasia Festival. For my money, this is what I like to classify as a certified Fuego. Hashtag that shizzle, man. Yeah, very befitting, and one of my absolute favorites of Fantasia here in 2025 that I had the chance to check out. So I extend a grande gracias. Once again, I've been Jaime En Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, obviously here on YouTube, and doing the like, the shares, the subscribe thing. If you got the chance to see this movie as part of Fantasia, whether in person or if you're a fellow critic, got the chance to see this, my buddy Jason Smith and his wife, they got the chance to see a lot more than I did. Their channel, Sinister Cinema, I know, did a review of this, even though it's not particularly horror. They just went genre crazy, Tim and this lady. So yeah, man, if you have had the chance to see this, give some thoughts. Do you think it overdid it? Do you think it I don't know, could have been condensed down to a short as opposed to just the zaniness that it kept going with and trying to keep it? It sure as hell kept my interest, man. I mean, especially like right around 70 minutes, man, I thought that it was very streamlined and earned every minute. But once again, film is subjective, and you know, that's just personal opinion. But yeah, I mean, and once again, merci beaucoup to everybody. Thank you so very much up in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the entire you know, press and you know, media team that helped out with getting these screeners and stuff out. It was a honor and a privilege. And also keep in mind that the scary stuff, as I mentioned, is coming over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That is where shizzle. I mean, we already put up Hold the Fort. We have Noise in the Bank. I know we still have like Burning and like The Wailing, a few others. So yeah, now that the festival has been concluded for about a week, we're finally getting all the edits and, you know, things together and whatnot after making our way through all the screeners. So once again, I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status, and until next time, hasta luego, sin amigos, the constant viewers and those who got the chance to check out this video, say thank you. I hope we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later, and yeah, adios.